Welcome back. Now we are going to have another new lesson for today. So in our last videos, we were able to discuss the difference between the psychological testing, the psychological assessment, and the psychological test. And also, we were able to tell the story or identify the story of the different psychologists, mathematicians, and statisticians who contributed in the world of psychological testing. Now it's time for us to discuss about test scores and norms. In this lesson, we are going to talk about norms and the meaning of test scores, part 1. Now you already administered the tests. You have the raw scores now. Okay, so again, the raw scores, these are the scores that we can see once we have the scores, or we already have the tests from the participants. Now we have the raw scores. The raw scores can now be derived. Now let's talk about the test scores. Alright, so scores on psychological tests are commonly interpreted by reference to norms. Now, if you already have the raw scores and you need to derive it, you have to confine to the norms. Now, what are norms? Norms are also known as the average performance of the test. Average performance of who? Of course, the first people who took the test when the test is being standardized. Alright, again, let's define standardization. Standardization is when a test gone through a very critical assessment wherein it was normed, test its reliability and validity. Alright, so again, the norms is the average performance of the test based from the original sample. The norms can be the average normal score of the original takers. Alright, let's continue so I can explain it more. So norms that represent the test performance of the standardization sample. Again, the norms, this is the test scores, it can be the test scores, that represent the test performance of the standardization sample. The standardization sample these are the very first who took the test. Their results became the standards of how the test will perform. If the standardization sample or the normative sample performed a very normal distribution between easy and hard, that would be the basis of how the scores or the raw scores will be derived. Again, standardization sample is also known as the normative sample. Again, the normative sample, these are the people who first took the test, and they were used as a basis to how the test scores will be interpreted. Again, the norms, this is the average performance of the individuals, or it can be average performance of the age norm, or it's called age norms, or the average performance of a grade, which is the school grade, so that will be grade norms. The norms is the average performance. Alright, so where we can take it from the standardization sample or the normative sample. let's continue. Now let's see the purpose of derived scores. Again, once you administer the test, you can't just interpret from the scores that is given, or that is given from the test takers. You should derive it from the norms. Now let's see what is the purpose of derived scores. First, they indicate the individual's relative standing in the normative sample. Again, the normative sample, these are the people who first took the test and was used as a basis of how to score the test. So, if you already have the raw score and you've derived it using the norms from the normative sample, you will see where that person or the test taker or your participant is placed in the normative sample. Also, they provide a comparable measure that permits a direct comparison of the individual's performance on different tests. So from there, since you already know the position of your participant from the normative sample, you can now compare the performance of your participant from the normative sample or from the first people who took the test. Now let's talk about statistical concepts. In your psychological statistics, we already discussed this, but in this session, we are just going to have a rundown to it. Alright, now we have first the frequency distributions, the central tendency, the mean, the median, the mode, the range, and standard deviation. Now let's go to distribution. The frequency distribution is a list, table, or graph that displays the frequency of various outcomes in a sample. Each entry in the table contains the frequency or count of the occurrences of values within a particular group or interval. In simple terms, frequency distribution shows you a list of how many people got the same score or specific score. How frequent is a score was attained by a specific group. For example, in your psychology class or introduction to psychology, your classmate got the score 98, 99, and 100. Now you wanted to know who from your classmates who got 100. So there must be 6 or 7. And then on the 98, 99, you have 10, 98, you have 11. So your count on how many who got 100, 99, and 98 is what we call the frequency distribution. How many got the same score? How many people got the same score? It can be in a list, a table, that let's explain first the range, because this is necessary for us to check and see the frequency distribution table. Now let's define range. Range is the report of the high and low score, or the range is the difference between the lowest and the highest values. Let's have an example. Okay, in here we have 4, 6, 9, 3, and 7. So these are all scores. These are all scores, or these are all scores. Let's say, for example, your classmates, some of your classmates got 4, some of them got 6, some of them got 9, some of them got 3, and some of them got 7. Now in here, the lowest value is 3, and the highest value is 9. So the range is 9 minus 3 is 6. So in here, the range is the difference between the lowest and the highest values of the scores. see here is an example of a frequency distribution table. So in here, you can see the class interval, the class boundary, the class mark, and the frequency. So in here, we have the class interval. So that's 70 to 74. So that would be the range. The lowest would be the 70, and then the highest would be the 74. But that is only the range for that class interval. There is another range from 104 to 70. So 104 is the highest and 70 is the lowest. So now let's go to class boundary. When we say class boundary, it is the boundary between the 70 to 74 class interval. So in here, we have 69.5 to 74.5. And then we have here the class mark. So if this table shows you the average performance of a specific class, all right, so there will be 72. That there are students who got 72. There are students who got 77, 82, 87, 92, 97, and 102. These are the class scores. Now, how many got those class scores? So there are 8 in 72, another 8 in 77 grade, 5 students to 82, 11 students to 87, 9 to 92, 5 to 97, 4 to 102. And the number of students are 50. As you can see here, frequency distribution shows you how many students got the specific score. And the range, or the class range, is the difference between the highest and the lowest scores. Now let's go to the measures of. Now we have first the mean. The mean is also known the arithmetic average. So how are we going to get it? So first, add up all the scores. Then divide the total by the number of scores. So the formula would be the sum of the scores, and then divided by the population, and that's it. All right, so when we wanted to know the average, for example, your average to 3 series of quiz. So for example, your first score is 93 on quiz 1, 93 on quiz 1, 98 on quiz 2, and 95 on quiz 3. So that is 3 quizzes, and you wanted to know your average from 93, 98, and 95. So what you're going to do is add them all. Add all the scores, then divide to the total number of scores. So there are 93 plus 98 plus 95 is equals to 286. Now divide it to 3 because there are 3 quizzes. So your average would be 95.33. In simple terms, the average is the mean rather is your arithmetic average. So if you have a group of scores, you just have to add them and then divide them on how many scores are there. Now let's go to the median. Median is the middle score. These are the scores. For us to compute it or to get it, you have to rank the scores. Scores must be in rank order. So count up or down to the middle of the score. So even numbers of scores. If they are even, average the 2 middle scores. Let's have an example. So for example, these are the scores. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. Now let's see what is the middle of the scores. So these are already ranked, as you can see, from lowest 1 to the highest 9. So these are already ranked. Now we have here also 9 numbers. Now let's find what is in the middle. So since this is already ranked, 1, 2, 3, and 4 has the lowest part. And then 6, 7, 8, 9 has the highest part, making number 5 or 5, score 5, the median. As you can see, the median is the middle score. Now let's go to the mode. The mode is the most frequently occurring score. First, identify which score must occur most often. For example, these are scores. Randomly, they are arranged. We have 99, 95, 97, 93, 99, and 94. So mode is the most frequently occurring score. So from this set of scores, which one occurs the most? Alright, so 99. So 99 occurs twice, while the others occurs only once. So in here, the mode is 99. Now let's go to standard deviation. Now what is standard deviation? Standard deviation indicates how much the scores vary from the mean. So for us to get the standard deviation, or simply SD, you have to identify first the mean or the average. Then from there, based on the mean score, the average of the deviation from the average score. So the average mean the average deviation or standard deviation depends on the average mean. So for example, the mean score would be 50. So the standard deviation would be how far is the score of an individual is from the average mean. Alright? So this will be explained more using the normal curve. Later in the next videos, I will show you where is the standard deviation. But for now, again, for us to identify where is the standard deviation or what is it, you have to base first from the average mean. From the average mean, you have your score, and then put that on the normal curve, and you will identify the average the standard deviation of the score that you have. Now, how to compute the standard deviation? First, calculate the mean or the average, the average. Then subtract the mean from each score. So if you have, the mean would be 10, you have to subtract the score that you have. So like, for example, the score that you have is 9. So that's 9 minus 10. And then square each difference. Once you have the difference, square it. Add all the square differences. So add all of the differences, divide by the number of scores, that is the n, and then find the square root. So here is the formula. So the standard deviation can be computed in here, using this formula. So that is for our video for today. We have another another video for this one, for the continuation of the norms and the interpretation of its meaning. But for now, if you have any questions, please let me know at our group chat. Alright, so thank you very much. I'll be seeing you then next time. See you then. Bye for now.